Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Stephen Brown, and in today's video, it was suggested in the comment section. I put it out there for you guys, and you guys asked for it. What if the Toronto Maple Leafs never signed John Tavares? And this is more or less what their team would have been in the 18-19 season, but the problem with Cap Friendly's Armchair GM is that I can't do an Armchair GM in previous seasons. So what I had to do for the players making league minimum, because league minimum is not $675K anymore, what I did was I gave them as low as I possibly could and then just added the difference to the salary cap. That's why it's not $79.5 million, it's $79.65 million. So there's a couple of things that we need to understand about the Maple Leafs' salary cap situation in the 18-19 season. This was the final year that Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner would have been on their entry-level deals, and they would have still been eligible for rookie bonuses on those deals. And like you're seeing on the screen right now, you're showing carryover bonuses from the season prior when Nylander was also on his entry-level deal. And the Maple Leafs wanted to avoid having carryover bonuses on their 19-20 salary cap for this season. Could you imagine how much of a wreck that would have been if they had carryover bonuses on this year's salary cap? So just $2.5 million in more dead space. They would not have been able to make Matthews' contract extension and Marner's contract extension fit at that point. And I know some of you are yelling at me, what are you explaining all this stuff for? Just pop Nathan Horton on LTIR, delete John Tavares, and let's see what the Maple Leafs could have done without that $11 million eyesore on there. I know that some of you are saying that, and I need you guys to listen very carefully here. The Maple Leafs could not place Nathan Horton on LTIR in the 18-19 season. The Maple Leafs did not use any LTIR in the 18-19 season. And the reason for that is because rookie bonuses are not payable with long-term injury reserve money. The relief that you get from having a player on LTIR, you cannot use that money to pay rookie bonuses. And the only way to receive the full amount of relief, the full $5.3 million in salary cap relief from Nathan Horton's deal, is to be at the salary cap ceiling, the maximum, to already be spending $79.5 million. And the problem with that, I mentioned it earlier in the video, is that the Maple Leafs would have had carryover bonuses on this year's payroll, on the 19-20 salary cap. So to picture this easily, I have deleted Nathan Horton and the carryover bonuses from the 17-18 season here on the 18-19 season. That's what we're looking at right now. And I've combined them together and just put it as dead weight. That is not going anywhere. And a lot of you really harped on Austin Matthews for missing games in parts of the 17-18 and the 18-19 season, calling him injury prone. Well, in the 18-19 season, Austin Matthews missing games, much like the 17-18 season, actually saved the Maple Leafs a lot of money. Someone can feel more than free to correct me in the comment section here, but because Austin Matthews didn't play all of the games in the 17-18 and the 18-19 season, he missed out on a couple of Schedule B bonuses that would have added to his $925K entry-level just baseline cap hit. And like you're seeing on the screen right now, in the 18-19 season, the Maple Leafs finished with about $3.883 million of cap space, and if Matthews would have played all of those games, that number would have probably been cut in half. So in order to make this as fair as possible, and it's only for the 18-19 season that we're going to have to do this, the rest of the seasons in this John Tavares-less experiment, we're going to have the full extent of the salary cap to work with, is I'm going to take the maximum amount of bonuses that both Matthews and Marner could have received, which is $3.7 million, and deduct $3.7 million from our salary cap, because we need to leave that much of a cushion in order for those players to hit the maximum amount of their bonuses, because we don't want to run into an overage charge for the 19-20 season, because we want as much money as possible in order to afford their contract extensions. So I've moved John Tavares onto LTIR here to just subtract his cap hit. And the new number, or the new salary cap that we're going to be working under for the 18-19 season is $75.95 million. And that's going to allow us $10.3 million in cap space to go out here and make changes to this team for this season and moving forward. And this is where I need to bring you guys into the fold while I'm recording the video, and we need to possibly use our imagination even more than we already are with John Tavares just not being on the Toronto Maple Leafs anymore. I understand that videos like this, hypotheticals, are not for everyone, but I don't see a point in drawing a line in the sand and saying that no, the hypotheticals need to stop here. We've already started it, so we're just going to continue doing it. And in order to do this properly, I need to go back to July 1st, 2018. But the problem with that is that Jake Muzzin wasn't a Toronto Maple Leaf then. And we're doing this for the 18-19 season, and I thought he was a really solid acquisition. I really did like the trade, and especially because he was re-signed at a very reasonable rate for the next couple of seasons moving forward in real life, that I think I'm going to just leave Jake Muzzin here and pretend as if he was the Toronto Maple Leaf to start the 18-19 season. Because if we're making other changes to this team or signing UFAs, I don't want to go through the 18-19 season and say, oh shoot, now we can't afford to sign Jake Muzzin, so it's just easier to pretend that he was there from the very beginning. And if you were following the team then, you'd also remember that James Van Riemsdyk and Tyler Bozak were UFAs that offseason. Now, I know that we have the power of hindsight on our side for the first 2 years of this projection, but a player that the Maple Leafs were very interested in before they ended up signing John Tavares, or a player that was connected to them in a lot of rumors, was now Calgary Flames center Derek Ryan. And for a player who signed with the Calgary Flames for about $3.1 million, just taking a look at his surface analytics here on evolvinghockey.com, Evolving Wild on Twitter, a pretty decent player. Can chip in a little bit on offense and is defensively responsible, plays on the penalty kill, and is a natural center. The Toronto Maple Leafs have not had one of those things for a very long time, unless you want to count John Tavares playing there. Sometimes, periodically, doesn't do it all the time. But when taking a look at Derek Ryan, he's a guy who wins faceoffs and plays a little bit more in the defensive zone than he does the offensive zone, especially in that 18-19 season when we're looking at his zone starts or his zone splits. So now with Derek Ryan signed, we have about $7.1-ish million to work with here, but a really big problem with the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 18-19 season was their backup goaltending. And when we're taking a look at their goaltending stats from the 18-19 season, 25 appearances were split between Garrett Sparks and Michael Hutchison, and Michael Hutchison fared pretty well in his 5 starts, but just 5 starts. And when we're coming back to the armchair GM, he makes $1.3 million in this situation here, and the Maple Leafs acquired him for a 5th round pick from the Florida Panthers in and around the trade deadline. So let's see what we could do with that backup goaltending position that was an issue for them all of that season and pretty much all of this year. And these are more or less the NHL caliber goalies that signed free agent contracts in the 2018 offseason. And like I said, we have the power of hindsight on our side. It would be really easy for me to say, oh, the Toronto Maple Leafs signed Robin Lehner to a 1-year, $1.5 million deal, and look how well his stats were that year. No, we're not going to do that. But it is very feasible to say that maybe the Maple Leafs would have offered a contract to Yaroslav Halak, maybe Peter Mrazek, maybe Anton Khudobin, maybe Jonathan Bernier. Okay, maybe not Jonathan Bernier. I'm not really too interested in going down that route again either. And when looking at the stats for these 3 goalies, like I said, hindsight rules all. 909 for Peter Mrazek over the last 2 years, 926 for Anton Khudobin, 921 for Yaroslav Halak, in primarily either split times or backup roles with their current teams or with their respective teams that they were on at those times. It's really easy to just discount Peter Mrazek. And like I said, when most people harp about the John Tavares contract, they say that that money could have been used towards a defenseman or two. So in order to allocate the most money to upgrading the defense, I am going to be going with Peter Mrazek on a 1-year, $1.5 million deal. And I mean, for a Maple Leafs team who struggled with Garrett Sparks as their backup for most of the 18-19 season, and then for a Maple Leafs team who really struggled with Michael Hutchison as their backup for the first half of the 19-20 season before acquiring Jack Campbell, a .909 save percentage from Peter Mrazek over the last 2 seasons would have been more than acceptable. So now we have $6.979 million to go out there and upgrade this team a little bit further. And when I'm looking at the forward group, it's screaming for an upgrade in that 4th line center position, especially with losing a center as good as John Tavares and just replacing him with Derek Ryan. I don't think it's enough. We got the money. Let's do it. Now, just taking a look at some free agent centermen that signed in the 2018 season here, and a name really sticks out to me, and that's Valtteri Filppula. Because it's a name that the Maple Leafs actually checked up on that offseason, and I believe the following year, and he said no. He said no, did not want to play for Mike Babcock. And Mike Babcock, as we know, power of hindsight, not long for this team. I don't know, do I add this player to the team? I mean, when we're taking a look at Valtteri Filppula here, the 18-19 season for him, he had 17 goals and 31 points. And even this year with the very, very bad Detroit Red Wings, had 21 points in 70 games. Could have been a useful player there. I'm going to add him to the team. So now we got $4.22 million left to go out there and upgrade the defense. But I don't really know who I could realistically take out or add to this team. So what I'm going to do is something that fans were screaming about for a very long time with this one particular player, and that's 38-year-old Ron Hainsey. I do think that Ron Hainsey contributed positively to this team, but like I said, he's 38 years old at this point in his career. Can you play him in less minutes, or can you not play him every single night maybe? So let's go see if there's a free agent defenseman available that we can rotate in with maybe Ron Hainsey and Nikita Zaitsev, because those two players weren't really the most effective for the Toronto Maple Leafs that season. Now, unfortunately, I can't sort by UFA and RFA here, so it's just the mashup of all of them together, but there is a name that's speaking to me here, and remember, we are on a budget of about $4.2-ish million, all the way down at the bottom here, and that is Greg Patterin for $2.25 million and 3 years. So we got $2.9 million left in cap space, and I don't want to go too crazy here. I think this is what we'd go with for the 18-19 season. And I mean, when comparing the 3 skaters that we added to the team as opposed to John Tavares, they are impactful at about 15.9 goals above replacement rating in terms of evolving hockey's metrics for the 18-19 season, but it still doesn't come close to John Tavares' 19.5 goals above replacement rating from that season. But we also added Peter Mrazek, and Peter Mrazek had a very, very good 18-19 season, so he probably covers the difference for the Toronto Maple Leafs in net. But this is where I'm going to be cutting the video off for today, and I more than likely will do a part 2 or part 3 to this series, so make sure to leave it down in the comment section on what you think of what I'm doing here so far. Remember, there is a disclaimer at the beginning of the video sharing my actual thoughts on the situation. Let me know what your thoughts are. I will put up a little poll at the top corner of the screen right now. Let me know if you think the Maple Leafs should have signed John Tavares or not, if you liked what I did here in this video, and make sure to leave me a like on it, because this did take a very long time to set up and research, and subscribe to see the next parts of this series. Make sure to leave me a like on the video if you did like it, subscribe for more, because more is always on the way, and guys, remember, it never hurts to have a little bit of hypothetical fun sometimes.